All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for spending some time with us on our webinar today. I have Will Howard from Stack Rock Group, and I met Will about 10 years ago. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm old enough to say that. But 10 years ago, he called looking for a license. He had used Land Effects in school. It was just him and I think one other person at the time, and they were starting their own company. And so it went from two people to now multiple employees. I think he has two locations doing big projects all over the country. And so this webinar is really going to go over all the challenges and benefits that he faced while growing a firm and while taking those risks and chances on doing projects outside of just where their location was. So if you guys have any questions, they're right down at the bottom of your screen. You will see a question Q&A box. Please type all your questions in there and I will get to them throughout the webinar. And then if you guys would like to chat amongst yourselves or chat with me, we do have a chat box that's already open. You'll see that Jacques Stock is already having a great conversation with me. So without any further ado, Will Howard, take the screen.
Hi, everybody. So as Crystal said, thanks, Crystal. Appreciate everything you guys have ever done. But so this is just kind of some of the challenges and benefits of growing a firm outside of our comfort zone. We obviously have had many more, but we had to condense it to an hour. So let me know. So in this presentation, we're going to learn how we at StackRock Group grew from 2 people in my spare bedroom to 14 employees, offices in 2 cities, and really operating on projects that are kind of across the country. Going to learn how to get the team right, which is super important in my opinion, how to coordinate and facilitate the aspects of landscape architecture in other markets, and then how to grow and maintain an office in other markets. So let's start a little bit about me. I live in Idaho. Many people are very confused on what that means. Idaho is in the Northwest. It's not Pacific, but it's considered Pacific Northwest. We're not in the Midwest. We don't travel with potatoes in suitcases, although we should because people ask us about our potatoes all the time. So kind of where we're located. Idaho has embraced that stigma or that kind of thing. I mean, we live in one of the fastest growing cities ranked in the United States for the past 10 years or even more. And so there's a pretty fun culture where we live, but yeah, they don't take it too seriously. These are shirts they sell at any number of stores that are downtown here, all the local people that have kind of embraced it. So who am I? So I'm Will Howard, co-founder and principal landscape architect. I started this company with my partner Christian in 2012. We actually met Crystal through, I think it was in college, probably 2006 is the first time I ever talked to her and Jer. But we really enjoyed what they did, and so we kind of got to know them and have stuck around and just won't stop pestering them. But
what can I say? My bubbly personality.
So Idaho itself is a state that has, I think it's got 3,500 miles of rivers in it. Half of it is very mountainous. We have the Sawtooth Mountains, which are close, which is a wilderness area. We border Yellowstone. Everything's outdoors here. And then the southern portion of it is actually desert, which is really strange. But that's where I grew up. I grew up in somewhere similar to what the picture you see here. A lot of dry grass, a lot of hot, very few trees, a lot of sagebrush. I grew up on a ranch south of Boise, about 2 hours. And through that process, I learned that unless I have to, I probably will never ranch again. And B, I wanted to find something to do. So when they offered us jobs in the year 2000, they offered us jobs in Boise to come work. So I came to Boise to work as a landscape laborer. They paid us, I think, $8 an hour and said, yeah, we'll pay you and we'll actually give you a pickup. So I ended up staying there, went to college for a couple of years, quit college because they offered me a pickup and a $10 an hour. And so at the age of 21, I was actually managing construction crews for large commercial projects and large-ish commercial projects around southern Idaho. So kind of have to throw that in there. So we were actually working on a Home Depot in a neighboring city, and I had a crew of 10 guys working for me. None of them spoke English. I could talk to them, and we had a site walk with a landscape architect. I didn't know what a landscape architect was. So he's walking through it. He looks at some irrigation that we were installing. We were installing it per plan. And we're like, hey, I think there's a better way. I think we should use this newfangled thing called Netafim and maybe bury it so that the people at Home Depot don't just kick these bubblers off and cause issues. And he looked at me and said, are you a landscape architect? And I said, nope, I'm not. And I don't even know what one is. And he said, well, I am. And you're going to build it like I drew it. And he just turned around and walked away. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. I'm going to figure out who you are. So I went back and I Googled. At that time, Google was still pretty new, but we Googled what it was. And sure enough, landscape architecture, you could draw plans and kind of tell people where and how and help organize all of the landscape or construction projects. And I was like, that's pretty cool. That'll get me out of shoveling. So for the next 6 to 8 years, then I kind of dedicated how I could work, where I could work, and what schools I could go to get a degree in landscape architecture. Fast forward then to 2009, graduate college after I've already worked all the way through that. So I've been working landscaping for about 9 years then. Graduate college, not one person in our class had a job in landscape architecture. I had a job in landscape construction still because I was good at irrigation and I could do service. So I went back and for the next 3 years then tried to start the design build side of the company I worked for, and then finally was able to talk Christian, my business partner, into actually just selling me. It'd be so much easier. Most landscape architects come through, they become a principal, and then they become the marketing guy. Well, I talked him into doing it for me, and ever since then, it's just kind of taken off. And I mean, without his hard work, there's no way any of us would be sitting here talking today. So thank you, Christian. So who is Stackrock Group? We are a landscape architecture firm in Boise, Idaho, and we have an office in Salt Lake City. So started in 2012, based in Boise. We design stuff kind of all over the country. Some notable projects we've done, we have 2 sustainable site certified projects, the first 2 corporate campuses in the world. We do construction or landscape architecture in, I think I'm licensed in 7 states right now. We carry 9 states. We just decided that we want to work and we want to embrace the interweb and we want to embrace how we do things. So we work all over the country. Right now, we have a project, our farthest away project is in Orlando, Florida, and it's a pretty large one. I think the budget on that project is $1.1 billion. And yeah, but we very much so do not take ourselves seriously. So there's a few of the Christmas cards that we've had over the years on here that we send to people, and we get a lot of good feedback. We're in a fairly religious area, and some of the companies actually told us that they don't know if they can work with us because some of our Christmas cards, while other companies really embrace it. And since then, we have a lot of other companies that we work with that are actually sending out and having fun with what they do too. So, I mean, the first Christmas card that we did is the top right. That's Christian in the front, Jesse, Buster in the back, and then Trevor Ball in the back as well. And we kind of just, yeah, I mean, the best part about our Christmas cards is we go to Walmart, we buy this stuff, we take the pictures, we take all of the material back. So each one of those photos has stuff that was returned within an hour.
You know, Jer once bought some speakers and he used them for a roller derby bout and he returned them and said that they weren't loud enough. And the guy asked him a question and he was like, huh?
Yep.
He didn't get the joke.
You have to be creative. So yeah, that's Stackrock Group. So here's some pictures over the years that we've collected, different clients, different people, Christmas parties, golf tournaments. I mean, I think the selfie in the middle is one of the first times we ever sent an office picture to Crystal. I think I was on the phone with Crystal when she asked for a picture of who we were because she couldn't believe that we were doing what we're doing.
Yeah, that we still have that in our system.
You'll notice in the center here, Jesse's eyebrow, which is pretty much the best. So that leads me to kind of what we're talking about today. So the number one thing out of anything that I can say is get the team right. We've been fortunate enough to have 2 people over the years not still work for us. And I don't mean that they don't work for us. We're fortunate for that, but we've only ever lost 2 people, which to me says a lot. We want to make sure that we take care of and get the right people on the team, because without any of those people or any of the people that work in our office, there's no way we can do anything. I am so incompetent at this point that all I do is work on helping manage myself. So I don't really get much done anymore. but we do a lot because we got the team right. So how do you do that? So the first thing you can do to do that is to set your systems and refine them over time. I mean, the biggest learning curve after never working in a landscape architecture firm for me is going to be how do you pay taxes? What do you pay for taxes and why? You have to know that stuff. We've been, again, fortunate enough. The team got set right. We use an accounts payable, accounts receivable person. We have an outsourced accountant that double checks everything. We use QuickBooks to track it. I'm sure there's other accounting apps out there at this point, and we'll kind of go through some of that as we move forward. We don't ever say no to change, but where we're at right now, that stuff works really well for us. But it's super important, as everybody knows, in a business. File systems, another huge hurdle for people who've never worked in a landscape architecture firm, is we had to create our own file systems, and then we had to refine them over time. So in the beginning, you go through and you have the best intentions and you label everything, and then you start getting more in-depth projects. And when we were doing initial planting plans and just little tiny stuff, it was really simple. But as you get more complex projects, we learned that you actually have to have a complex filing system. And then we were fortunate enough to have some people join the team that actually had worked in other firms. So we used some of their older methods mixed with our methods. And I mean, the more we work on it, the better we get. And every day we're refining it. We don't necessarily switch up the system, but we will tweak the system whenever we can to make it more efficient. So currently we're using Google Drive, Google Docs, Calendar. We have a great program called Toggle. If you haven't used it for time tracking, it's amazing. Check it out. And then we use another program called Asana for our project management. And that allows us to all communicate and just make sure we have records of everything. And those are not the only programs we use. We're more than happy to share everything we have, but yeah, those ones work really well for us. Human resources. So take a bunch of millennials, stuff them all in an office that are all about the same age, and you can imagine the fun that we get to have. We love each other, but we hate each other. At any given point, somebody within our office is not getting along with somebody else, which, I mean, that's part of life. So over the years, I've really had to kind of step into that role as well. We're almost to the point where we're going to have to outsource it, but I worry that we'll lose the culture we have. But again, I want to make sure everybody's happy, healthy, safe, and feels like they have a voice. So we take it pretty seriously, but again, we fight every day like a bunch of school kids and brothers and sisters. So it's something that you have to be aware of, and you really have to know what it is. What I've kind of learned over the years, and whether it's an advantage or a disadvantage, I test very low on the emotional scale. So I've learned that if we can keep the emotions out of a conversation, we can typically get to the bottom of what's going on and fix it pretty fast, as long as we know that there's a right and a wrong. Everybody knows, and everybody that we hire them based on who they are, not based on their work history. So we're pretty comfortable with making sure that we're professional, safe, and courteous all at the same time. We have handbooks, we have all of that fun stuff we've developed over the years. So, but yeah, human resources is one that you got to kind of get right. And then culture. Make sure you take care of the family. I mean, everybody here is a family. Like I want all of them to be at my kids' birthday parties. I want everybody to know that we care about who they are, what they do, and how they interact with us. And so we take it pretty seriously. And again, this goes back to everybody fights all the time, but at the end of the day, everybody should know that we will do anything we can to make sure that they're happy, healthy, and safe. And then have fun. I mean, we get excited about a lot of stuff, birthdays, anniversaries, like anything we can do to help make sure everybody knows that we care about what they are, we'll do it. We'll have barbecues. I think we're going hiking. We float to the river. We go on trips. We just went to a baseball game. Like anytime we get a chance, we're trying to have fun and get excited about what we are, because we know it's gonna, at some point there'll be a recession. We know we're going to have to shrink back and really constrict where we're at. But at the same time, we also know that this is the family and team that's going to help us get through anything. So we have to celebrate that and not take it too seriously. And then we have to have a culture that provides a value for people. People hire us to do a job. People hire us because we can fix a problem. Everything that we do, there's a set of rules, there's something that we have to find, and we have to provide solutions. They don't hire us to ask questions, or not ask questions, but they don't hire us to cause issues or to become, I don't even know, to become a problem. They hire us so that we can help them fix the problem. So whether that's sustainable sites lead, I mean, that was one where we got hired to do, we showed up to our first sustainable sites project that we ever got. The property manager for an HP campus said, I want to get rid of 40 acres of lawn. How do I do that? And I said, you take it out. I mean, it's as simple as that. But then you go through the process, and we became the tool that was able to help them do that while still getting certified gold and be the first campus in the world. So they're super happy with it. We were super happy with it. Like, it all works out. And then site design, just finding how, where, what things, as landscape architects typically know, how things work. Just find the solution and present it. So the other thing that's really important is giving back. I mean, yeah, we're young. Yeah, we don't have any money. Yeah, we still chase things and we just run off a handle and fly after shiny objects. But we still try to make time to give back. I mean, we donate time. We go to the food bank. We started a nonprofit that I'm part of. There's so many things that we can do to help out in the environment or even in the community. We want to be involved, and we want people to know that, I mean, we truly do care. This is our profession. I tell people all the time, I only have another 40 years of working, so we better get to work on giving stuff back and really making this thing work. So communication. So 90% of our errors, I would say, come from miscommunication. And I don't know how to more blatantly put it than just talk to people, whether it's projects within an office, whether it's projects with a client, whether it's projects with a city. You have to learn how to communicate, and then you have to learn how to document it. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit down the road, but communication's so key. And when people send you fired up emails, you need to be able to call them and say, hey, what's going on? Because a lot of times it's just the way that we read the email versus the way that they typed it. So just learning how to communicate and document that is so important for being in a firm, growing in a firm, and actually doing stuff. And embrace change. I mean, without the way that we're set up, so the way that Stack Rock Group is set up is we've invited and we want everyone to be an owner of this company before I leave. I think the only way, in my mind, and I've worked for a few companies over the years, and they had some old school mentalities of you come to work. Well, we actually had a boss. They were having a conversation and they were talking about employees, and they said, hey, an employee is a tool. Use them until they break and then get a new tool. And instantly, that's what I knew that I never wanted to do. So what we've done is we've set it up to where everybody here, I expect them, if they want to, they don't have to. I'm not requiring anybody. But if anybody wants to, they can be an owner of this company, and we'll help provide them the path to do that. I want people to own this company. I want people to run this company. I want this company to be the coolest company that they've ever worked for and their friends have ever worked for. So to do that, we have to give them an opportunity to stick around and actually be part of the company. And so we take that seriously. We started out by embracing change and getting ready for it and wanting people to be part of it, because I realized we can't keep talent without making talent part of it. And plan for growth. I mean, identify where that talent is and then figure out how they can become part of it. Identify where the new ideas are, where the new technology is at, where all of that's, where any opportunity is, and try it. And if it doesn't work, cool, we'll keep going, because it really won't hurt us that much in the grand scheme of things. But if it does work, it could revolutionize the way we do things. An example of that would be land effects. Land effects, to me, revolutionized how you could design and document projects. And people are still not using it. And when I talk to them, I just start laughing. I met a firm the other day that doesn't use it, and I was like, cool, good luck. See you guys later. So, I mean, I'm not going to tell you who that is either, Crystal, because they're invoicing.
Thanks.
You're fine. They only have one landscape architect, so it's okay. Oh, sorry. So transition plan. Figure out how you can make those little guys. Those are my two kids on the front, and that's my nephew on the back of that little roping dummy. Not many people will know what that is, but how do we figure out and how do we transition this company to them? Like, that's always been in the plans. Like, figuring out, I've been to so many ASLA conferences where they have transition planning seminars, where they have a panel where they sit up there, they talk about how and where and why and how these companies can transition plan from their ownership group that they have now to the future. And I've looked around in those, and 95% of the people in that room are people trying to figure out how to get somebody to buy their firm, because they don't know how to transition plan out. They've created something. They have a great business where they're running their business, but all their relationships, all of their stuff Everything they have is through them. And so what's going to happen? Somebody's either going to buy them out or they're going to shut their doors. I don't want that. I want this to be something that we can transition to the future, whether it's my kids, Kylie's kids, Christian's kids, Jesse's kids, if he has any ever, and just making sure that we're setting them up so that they can then take this and run and just do whatever they want with it. And then the other thing is like employee failure is us failing as teachers. Like this is the strongest part about our culture that I can think of is that if we don't, everything that happens that goes wrong is something we can learn from. And so I look at them as opportunities, and our opportunities, if somebody failed or if somebody doesn't have the right information, it's because we didn't as a team help them by giving them enough information to succeed. So that's kind of how we look at the office. That's how we look at projects. That's how we look at everything. If we don't figure it out and help everybody succeed, then we're all going to fail. So
You do have to admit, though, with that picture, someone had to have been like, I just don't think this is right. I let's ask somebody else.
So funny story about not this picture, but something very similar is we've been traveling to Orlando for that project. I've been there 3 or 4 times this year so far. And we rode with an Uber driver. And so we made friends with the Uber driver. When I travel, I make friends with whoever they are so that they can haul us around later and we can just get a direct line. And this guy was driving us around the roads of Orlando. And if you've ever been to Orlando, the freeways are terrible. That town is so spread out. And this whole thing is just completely under construction. So driving up and down this road, he was telling me the story about how there's like 10 or 12 different construction companies rebuilding the whole freeway currently, and they weren't communicating. And they actually had this issue where the freeways did not line up with their sections. So there were delays and years. And I mean, all that is again, it goes back to communication. So figuring out how to communicate, whether it's with yourself, peers, or even competitors, you have to figure that out. So how do we coordinate and facilitate the aspects of landscape architecture? Like, how do you do that? More information about a site, the better. I mean, we don't travel to every one of the sites that we work on out of Idaho. With Google, with the information, with people on the ground, we don't have to do that anymore. But no matter what, we have to know what the site inventory is and what the surroundings are like. We have to know where it's at, what the jurisdictions are, all of that fun stuff. So, I mean, you have to know it. You have to know what you can do. Strong team, whether it's internal team within our office or whether it's a construction team or whether it's a owner operator, whoever it is, they have to have a strong team and somebody has to take control of all the information. So whether it's us project managing or a company that's project managing or a civil engineer, whoever it is, somebody has to be strong. And in the beginning, if you see something or see projects, we have projects that we did in Texas and they did not have a strong team. We had a strong pieces of the team, but nobody was project managing it because the owners of the company did not understand. They grew too fast and didn't understand how to project manage design teams separate from construction teams. So what inevitably happened is there were revisions after stuff that got submitted to different municipalities and we weren't getting all the information. They're in construction and they send us a thing. Well, they were super upset that we didn't have the correct site plan shown. How, without a strong leadership, there's no way for us to know what that is. So we were then 42 revisions into these projects that didn't need that. All they needed was somebody to organize it and send all the site plans out and really become that strong communicating team. So, yep, email, phone, leader oversight, no matter what, call it out as soon as you can, because the sooner you can fix the issues on it, the better the projects get. Have all the right people. We've all been through where we have the wrong people on a phone call and it either offends someone, or we have the wrong people on a meeting and it offends somebody, or we just don't get the information we need, so we've just wasted everybody's time. So just make sure that you get your team right. Talk with where you're working as early and often as you can. Get a hold of them, find out what they want, find out where they want, find out who they want, find out who they want on the call. They all will tell you, but some of them are just a little bit different. Another good example of this is I've worked all over the country, and there's a little town in Texas that's not a little town that is the worst spot to this day that I've ever worked in. And we've ended up doing 3 projects there with 3 different owners, 3 different architects. And every single time it is the worst process ever because they don't know how to communicate and they don't know how to deal with the growth they have. So it ends up being a 12-month process to get through a city. But we know that. So going into it, just talk to them and know what they are going to be requiring of you. Make sure you respect the chain of command. If you call a city or a jurisdiction, if you call somewhere, if you talk to an owner, if you talk to anywhere, make sure you know who you're working for, because if you leave them out, they can make your life miserable. Don't do that. Make your life smooth and happy. And if you don't like working underneath them, through them, deal with it on the next one or deal with it then. But make sure you know who and what and where you can get your answers from. Know the rules and the roadmaps. I mean, everything we get, we find out what the rules are, and then you can create creative design solutions from them. But you have to know the rules. You have to know that you've met minimums. You have to know that you've reached the goals of what your client gave you, or the city gave you, or the state, or the country, or wherever you're working. Communication between team. Talk to everybody. Make sure you document it and follow up, and just make sure everybody knows what the deadlines are, so that when it comes down to it and it's the end of the project, you can A, cover your bases, but B, have a successful project. Your client, you got to have the answers you need from your client. So know what questions you need to ask. An example of that would be, do you want multifamily here, or are we going to do a park? I mean, that's as simple as it is. You got to know what they're looking for in the beginning. So just get the communication with your client down. The cities, yeah, make sure you're talking to your cities. Make sure that everybody's on the same page. Contracts are super important. Contracts will either make you or break you. So get your contracts correct. If it spells out exactly what you're doing, and even more importantly, exactly what you're not doing, it'll save you tons of time and money down the road. It'll also help you get paid for scope creep. But it's super important that everybody knows what to expect from you and what you can expect from them. Document everything. Emails are awesome. If you talk to someone on the phone, send them an email following up with what you talked about. If you text someone, send it to your email. Store all of your stuff. Learn how to file all of your documents so that you can find them later. We put everything in project files. Everything is stored. Everything is online. So we can get and access any of that anytime. I have a project where a guy did a remodel on the house. We do residential through commercial. We do whatever. We just like to work. We're doing a remodel on a house. He's putting shade sails on the back of his pool patio, which is elevated over a really steep hillside by about 65 feet. So our posts are roughly 30 foot in the air. Our footings are 8 to 12 foot in the ground, all structurally engineered. Everything there is. Well, we go up, we hang the last shade sail, and by we, I don't actually hang anything anymore. My hands are soft and very inept. But they're hanging the last shade sail, and I go up to inspect it to help make sure everything looks okay, and I notice that one of the posts is leaning. That post ended up only having a 3.5 foot footing. I didn't know that. We didn't know that. So we get into it. The structural engineer sends a note saying, nope, sorry, everything's supposed to have an 8 foot footing. You guys had this. It was on your plan. You're liable. I'm like, oh no, did I miss that during construction? Did we redraw an engineer's plans? I'm freaking out inside. So I ended up coming back to the office then the next day, pull open all the emails, go through all the documents, go through all the emails that we got from them. And on this certain day, at this certain time, he had marked up on a set of plans and sent them to us, which we submitted, 3.5 foot sonotube. So I just send that back to him and say, hey man, I appreciate that we're all trying to make sure that we're covered here, but this is the email I got from you. This is where you marked this up. This is where you did it. Instantly, they took care of the problem. I didn't have to deal with it anymore. And I was out of it, but that's all because we saved and documented every single thing that was ever sent. And that was 3 years before, something like that. So, bidding CA, how do we find contractors? How do you bid private projects out in other cities and other states? We use our suppliers. So we will actually call any of the major suppliers that are typically in the cities or where you live or where you work with now and ask them for it. So we use Site One. Site One's kind of a national company. There's tons of companies here. We have great relationships with them from my days contracting, but I'm able to call them and say, hey, do you guys have a branch, or where's your branch locator? We'll go through it. I'll call them and say, okay, here's the scale and here's the scope of the project. Do you have contractors that want to look at this? They'll say, absolutely. They always say absolutely, because they want to get their contractors who buy from them work. So they'll send us a list of contractors, then we can actually go through and call them and kind of qualify them some more and get their backgrounds just to make sure everybody's legit. And 9 times out of 10, this works super great. That's the same with how do you find plant material? We'll do the exact same thing. I'll call nurseries. We'll get online. There's also, I think, wefindplants.com is a cool new app that they've been trying to get us to join. I really appreciate what they do. But we'll call local nurseries, get their availability lists, and use them then for design. Learning plants is learning Latin. So we can learn plants, forms, shapes, textures, and knowing what their soil components and all of that fun stuff is. But if you know all the plants, that doesn't mean you'll ever be able to find them. There's so many plants that grow where I live here in Boise that we have never seen here. We have to go through the nurseries, and it's the same when you travel. It's the same when you work out of state. We just research and find the local companies that we can work with and reach out to them. It might seem like a daunting task. In the beginning, the very first time we did it, it took days because we didn't know what the heck we were doing. But over the time, then we have kind of refined that process to know exactly how to do it. And we can do, I can typically find availability lists and local contractors within an hour of anywhere that we're within an hour of when I start to look, just by reaching out and going through that process. Same thing with if you need other professionals in other states. Some states carry different designations that we have to have as landscape architects. I would have to fly to Texas to become a licensed irrigator, or I can get on their licensed irrigator list and then cross-check that with a local distributor. And then all of a sudden I have a list of 5 people that are in the area that are willing to help and do irrigation and help with irrigation on projects. So that's how we did it. And it worked out great. Same thing with CA. How do you manage it? First, you make a good relationship with whoever's building it. And so if there's a general contractor on site, they typically will send you pictures all day, every day if you ask for them. Same thing with an owner. Same thing with anybody. We have projects that are, and then on other projects, we'll fly. So we have a project in Northern California that I've flown to, I think, 10 times this year, once a week, to check on the project and the progress and just make sure that the contractor was doing what the owner wanted. So there's a combination of ways that you can do it, but no matter what, you have to document and you have to communicate. So to document and communicate, you do it with pictures, emails, phone calls. Just make sure that everybody is looking at the correct things, and then, yeah, it's just the same thing. The same thing you should be doing at your home base is the same thing you should be doing out of state, but you might have to get creative and use the internet. Bidding CA, documents, contracts, and specs. So once you get those contractors, you bid it out the same way, you document all the questions, you get the correct contracts written, and you have the right specifications that hold them accountable. That way, nobody's getting away with anything. And if there is a better way, I mean, we get change orders all the time. If there's a better way truly out there and they're not just trying to swap materials because they got a better price on it, great. But if it's just something where they can save money by doing it, then to me, they should have brought that up before the bid, because then we'll look at it. But if you try and bring that up afterwards, then it's something that we got to kind of talk about for the next one. It's a little late. We can't shop and we can't change bids after the fact. Firefighting. So as you grow, as a company gets bigger, as you have more employees, as you have more offices, more of your time gets, I would say, dedicated to dealing with the issues. So since we started our company, my job has changed, I would say, roughly every 2 months. So every 2 months as we grow, because we've been in such a growth curve, there's new issues that I never thought I'd be dealing with that I'd get to deal with. And once you're the face or the front of a project, people call you about everything. So I get calls no matter who's working on it, no matter who the project manager is, no matter who the landscape architect is on it. I'm going to get the phone call saying, hey, this is messed up. How do we fix it? So you have to know what's going on, but you also have to know that every problem is a solution. You just have to look at the opportunities that come out of it. So we call it firefighting. We just deal with issues all day long. City coordination. I mean, city coordination and communication can be such a crazy thing. We have a project we worked with the city on. They were in at least 6 meetings before the project happened. They were super supportive. They put out a press release talking about how cool the project is. The project's about 2/3 done, and we got a letter saying that we were in non-compliance and they were going to charge us to come do the maintenance on the project because it was growing weeds. they were at all the meetings. So I call, go back through all my communication, go back through all my documents, send them to them. And they're like, oh, that's a misunderstanding. Our compliance officer was driving by and he thought it was weeds. So you guys got a letter. So yeah, no, don't worry about it. But I framed that letter that we got from the city of Boise saying that we were in non-compliance because they were instrumental in making that project happen. But the communication on their end didn't follow through. So it's just super important that no matter what, when you think you've talked about it or communicated more than you should to anybody with anything that's going to have any issues, do it again, because it can just cause issues. And again, back to it, always have a solution. No matter what you're doing, that our job, in my mind, again, maybe I'm completely crazy, but our job as landscape architects and people that are hired to project manage or people that are hired to work in these different jurisdictions is to find out what the rules and regulations are and have a solution of how the client or how the project or how the people can make it work. And not just make it work monetarily, but make it work for the city, make it work for the jurisdiction, make it work for the environment, make it work for wherever they're working or what they're working on. Our job is to help them make that work smoothly. So how do we expand into other markets then? So working all over, yeah, that's great. Why and how? Well, find work. The easiest way, and what we ended up doing and why we have an office in Salt Lake City, is because we ended up finding work there. We started, our clients that we have took us to work in other cities. A lot of people move to Boise from other areas and have different connections to different projects all over the country. So what we do is we find that work there. And once we have enough work, then we can actually start a team there. It makes sense to have a team of people in place so that we're not traveling all the time, but it also then makes sense for them to help get and do the work. So we find the work, we do the work. It's as simple as that. But to do those two things, you have to have a team in place and you have to have somebody and people that are looking out for your best interests along the way. I've been fortunate enough to have partners and people in our office that have actually been able to find the work and really help with this side of it. That's not my side. My side is more of the let's do the work. So I eat a lot of cheeseburgers. And when the opportunity presents itself, no matter how small it is or how big it is, make sure that you're doing everything you can to take that opportunity and go succeed. Show those clients, show those architects, show those people, show those jurisdictions, show whoever you're working for that you're ready, even if it is, hey, what kind of tree is this? We've had thousands of dollars of work come from someone asking us what color of shrub they had in front of their house. That starts a conversation. We identify that material, we identify that problem, we identify that plant species. Next thing you know, they're calling about, hey, this park's irrigation system is bad. Here's what's going on. How do we fix it? Next thing you know, then you're designing plaza spaces. So no matter how little or insignificant it might seem at the time, it's going to help out down the road. Chase clients, not cities. Everybody wants So in my opinion, a lot of people are drawn to big cities because it's flashy and it's cool and you can tell your friends and we can do that. Find clients first. There's no reason to go work anywhere unless you have something to do. Unless you have a bunch of money that you just want to go spend and start an office, which I've seen people do that too. But in my mind, the easiest ways to do it is to have clients that are already working there because they're going to pay for your mistakes. They're going to pay for the learning curve that you're going to have when you go or when you're working in these different areas. So help them help you. Help them succeed, they'll help you succeed, and next thing you know, you'll make friends by people that you meet while you're there. Which brings me to my last one here. Make friends. Everything we do is to make friends. We are in a relationship business. We are in relationships with cities, we are in relationships with clients, we are in relationships with jurisdictions, whatever it may be. We're here to make friends. I'm 37 years old, and I don't want to work with people that don't like me. So we don't. And hopefully there's not many of those. What my job is to do is to make sure that everybody knows that we're good people and we're just trying to work and we're trying to do the best we can, but we're also here to help. So we end up making friends. I have friends in tons of different cities where now if I fly through or I'm there, I'll call them, text them, we'll go say hi. And it's not even work related. I'm there because I genuinely want to know and see how people are, and then bring more than you take. We have we have a few architects that just send us work that we haven't taken anything back to them. But our whole mission in the beginning was to find more work than we do. So we help pair people, and we help clients, and we help pair, whether it's a landscape contractor with a homeowner or general contractor with a project, or no matter what, we're trying to bring more than we take so that we don't just feel like we're always just taking from people. That's not a very sustainable look in our business format, is to just take work, because at some point they're going to find somebody who brings them work. So why not it be us? And communicate. When you see something, when you hear something, when you're seeing RFP, send it to all your friends. Make sure that they know that it's out there, because a lot of times they aren't doing the research that you're doing. They might be doing it in a different way. And if it comes together, then all of a sudden you have a project. So if there's an RFP that gets put out by a city and you see it because of the landscape architecture portion, send that to the architects that you want to work with it on it. They'll send it back to you. And pretty soon you'll create this triangle that as soon as your name keeps getting brung up, you're going to be on all their RFPs. And then manage your debt versus your cash flow. I mean, some people get away with taking big loans and going to start stuff, but without work, like, that's such a business plan way to do it. That's not the way that I can operate. So we try to manage all of our growth as it goes. And yeah, it's made for some really stressful, tight days. And there's times where your anxiety level's at 9. But if we can manage our debt versus our cash flow and know where our AR versus our accounts payable is and how all that works, it becomes another system that we can manage and actually help and promote, and we know when and where and how to grow. So in summary for today, I want to just come back to communicate. Like, all of it is communication. No matter what we do in this life, we have to learn to communicate. And strong team. To get a strong team together, you have to have communication, and you have to have people you can trust. And you have to have accountability. I mean, accountability as an owner, accountability as an employee. Everybody has to be on the team and actually be working for the end goal. And then, yeah, just coordinate everything and communicate and keep talking and asking and finding. And over time, you will make new clients and hopefully expand, or hopefully stay small. It's up to you. So from there, I'd like to invite any questions or any comments that people might have, and I'd love to hear your feedback.
Well, I thought that was fantastic. I don't see any questions. I'll let people have a few moments to try and type anything in. But yeah, I agree. The communication is definitely key, and remembering about taking out the emotion to it. Because especially for us, we get calls when something's going wrong and you guys have deadlines that you got to meet, and it's frustrating when, of course, you need to get something turned in and there's something preventing that. So a lot of times that's what I try to work with here is we just have to understand that anger is not necessarily directed at us. It's just a frustrating situation, and we're here to help with that.
For sure. I feel the same way. And that's why, I mean, through this process, I've learned to take it easy on most people. You know what I mean? There's so many ways that you can communicate about something, and 90% of the time I don't communicate correctly. You can ask my wife. Like, it's
oh, we talk about it all the time. It's
yeah, it's me not knowing how to speak, and I'm hearing something totally different. Like, I say it to clients all the time. Our first meeting for residential clients, I'll typically tell them, they'll ask, why do you have to do concepts for this? Why can't you just do what I'm asking? And I'm like, what color of green is that tree? And they're like, well, it's just green. I'm like, exactly. I see 4 different colors of green, and you're trying to tell me to draw what you're saying, and I don't even know what color of green you're talking about. So I have to get that on paper to communicate to you what you want. And at that point, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. It's a telephone game. So the more communication we can have, the better we're all going to be.
Jer,
Question?
oh, perfect.
Yeah, I thought of a question. I've just I know of one of our other clients who, he was always saying how he does work in 4 different states, and he's always juggling the continuing ed requirements to maintain his licensure in at least two of the states, maybe even all four. I don't know, but I was wondering, anything in that regard that you've kind of found out or learned or struggled with any sort of professional licensure certification across multiple states.
Yes, I take the worst case scenario, and that's all I care about. So, all wherever I'm licensed, I just find out which one's who makes you and who requires you to carry the most, and so that's my minimum requirement for everything. So I currently have to get 12 a year, no matter what, no
Mm.
matter what state, no matter where I'm at. The worst I think is still 12 or 24 over 2 years, but that's still just 12 a year. So as long as I get my 12 CEs a year and then stay up on everything else, I'm okay. We do carry people that are licensed in different states from me, so they're going to have different requirements. But it's just know the worst case scenario one, and then track your licensure. That's another big thing. Just make sure you renew those licenses. It's so easy to overlook and not be carrying a license that you think you are. You have to be able to go through and do that. So we've had to develop a system. We put it on calendars now because we had an issue where I was not licensed in a state, and we did a project there and I thought I was licensed. The day that we found out, I went ahead and we went and renewed it. I called the state and told them what was going on, and it caused a huge issue. And all it was me not paying attention and paying the bill. And it wasn't CEs, it wasn't anything else, but it was just, you just have to know and you have to keep track of it. So
Wow, crazy. What about like related to that? I mean, I imagine also, insurance and even a lawyer or anything. I mean, it might be pretty easy to make sure you're insured or bonded in multiple states, but I don't know if anything's ever come up where you had to, um, touch bases with your lawyer to find an attorney in a different state. Hopefully things didn't hit that
do,
point, right?
do you hear this? This is me knocking on wood. No, we do have a really good attorney. He's a guy that I've known since college. He has helped us out. I mean, a lot of times it's just communication again of either poor communication or where it's at. But anytime we have any questions, I'm able to reach out to him. He helps out then, and it does cost money, but it's something that you've got to have. You just have to have somebody that you can trust that can help you navigate those situations. So yeah, it costed money. We had lawyers. I gave them all the information from all the projects. I turned all over everything and was just like, hey, this is what happened. Here it is. I'm not hiding anything and I'm not trying to get away with it. We paid the day that we found out. Here's the day we found out. Here's when you guys got, I called with a credit card. Like, this is all it is. And a lot of it's communication. And as long as they know, they were like, okay, we get it. Some states, in dealing with that, some states that I was looking at, I think Tennessee was one, to where you can be fined $1,000 a day for not carrying, for every day that you didn't carry a license in their state and operated as a landscape architect.
Mm,
So it's pretty serious. So you kind of have to pay attention to it. You
yeah.
can operate as loosey goosey as you want, but at the end of the day, it's on you, and nobody else really cares. They just want to know that you're operating within the rules. So, and that's our job, to find the rules and operate in them.
I have another question for, for doing a job that's going to be farther away. We were looking into it once. I don't know if you've found any kind of, or even looked into it, like a drone for hire sort of either company or drone flyer user group or something. But it seems like it would be very advantageous to be able to just, pay from afar to have someone do some drone footage of a site and even a repeat visit of a site to prevent you from having to travel a long distance to get those sorts of photos. Um,
There's a ton of different forums online. Like, you can find different drone forums. If you have, like, we own a DJI Phantom 4 Pro, I think. And so Trevor in our office pays pretty close attention to those. And there's people all over the country. So we entered a project with the Smithsonian. We work with a fairly well-known artist who builds statues all over the country, and he had a really great shot, like top 3 shot, of actually redoing a whole plaza space for the Smithsonian in DC. Well, to do that, you have to send them your design concept, and you have to enter and do all this fun stuff. And to do that, you can do some of it from Google, but for the most part, you need site pictures. So we actually went back through all of our Facebook pages and found somebody that we had went to college with that lived in DC and Venmoed him $100 to go take site pictures for us. He was more than happy to do it. But yeah, there's ways to get super creative with it without spending a whole bunch of money.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Does anyone else have any last minute questions that they'd like to add in? Give a few minutes to type on that. Well, I just want to thank you, Will, for doing this and sharing your knowledge with us. And Terry King wants to let you know that you did a great job too.
Thanks, Terry. Come see us. I think he's one of the guys that lives in our city that actually found you guys. I told
really?
you not to sell your programs to anybody else we know.
You know, I can't help it.
Well, don't worry. We charged them more than we charge you. So.
Good.
Oh, actually, we do have one question that came in. What would be your biggest advice point in starting your first firm on your own?
So the whole reason that we started what we're doing now is because no one would hire me. You're in a recession. I am terrible with not telling the truth. So when people ask what you think and you tell them, they don't like that a lot of times. And there was just stuff going on. And so in discussing it, we started talking to people and we actually found work. So the biggest advice I can find or tell anyone was find the work. Once you find the work, the rest of it will actually work itself out. And yeah, there's bumps and there's crazy stuff that you have to do along the way. But once you have the work and once you have clients, the rest of it, that's what you get paid to do, is figure it out. So just find the work, and then pay attention to the people that you hire and that help you do it. Because if you don't take care of the people around you, then pretty soon you're going to be alone and having to start over. And retraining new people and trying to figure all of that out is a tough way to go. So try and keep the people you have happy and find the work.
Yep, I'd very much agree with that. I think it's the biggest thing is just having the right help.
Yeah.
And having the right team to support you, because it's going to be tough, but it's a lot easier to handle the tough times when you have someone there.
For when people ask me, I always say it's key to have a quixotic belief that you can actually pull it off.
Yeah, that too. You got to be 99% crazy, but yeah, other than that.
Exactly.
And you got to not care about after work, because there is no after work. And
oh yeah.
I told my wife the other day, I'm like, man, can you imagine if 20 years ago I'd have made a decision to just go to work for somebody? We could have camping trips. We could do all these fun things. It would be so much fun.
Right? All the free time that you could, if it was just start at 8, end at 5, it's like
Wow.
You don't have any, you do not have hours when it's your own.
We have friends that go to happy hour at least twice a week. And I'm like, man, that would be cool.
I'm sorry, what is happy hour? I don't know this.
That's the hour when I get home before my kids go to bed.
Same. All right. Well, thank you again, Will. So happy to have you do this for us. And if you guys have any other questions, I highly recommend following StackRut Group on Instagram. I don't tweet necessarily myself, but I do gram it up. So they are hilarious. Their Christmas cards are super fun. We are going to start a Christmas card challenge. Super
accepted. Challenge accepted.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and enjoy your Friday.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.